And we're live. All right, everybody. As always, I got to go through my spiel. I got to do my little sales pitch. If you are watching on X or YouTube, head on over to bravenewnormal.substack.com and join the chat there. Let's get everybody all in the same chat. If you want to watch the full recording of this live stream, as always, I'm going to post a free 30-minute preview for everyone. But if you want to watch the full recording, you have to be a paid subscriber at the same place. bravenewnormal.substack.com. It's $5 a month or $50 for the year. With your paid subscription, you receive early access to every episode of the Brave New Normal podcast, exclusive paid-only essays, and, of course, full access to all of my live stream recordings with the beautiful Peyman Askari. I know that there's another part of this. There's something else I'm supposed to say right now, but I will just say this. Guys, if you're on YouTube, if you're on X, go to bravenewnormal.substack.com. Join the chat there. Of course, I'm going to pay attention to the YouTube chat because you guys are fucking maniacs and you're all stubborn and you don't want to move. But if you can, go to bravenewnormal.substack.com. Let's watch everything there. And even if you don't want to sign up as a paid subscriber, sign up for free. It's really, really important that everybody who's watching these, who are subscribed everywhere else or following on X, sign up on Substack, because Substack allows me to send everything directly to you. It is our way around the algorithms. We don't need to rely on the algorithms to deliver everything to you. Anything I produce goes direct to your inbox. I'm all scattered today. I know there's other things that I'm supposed to say, but I'm eager to talk to you, Peyman. So let's just get going. Peyman Askari, you beautiful son of a bitch. How you doing, man?
I'm doing good. I'm doing better now that I got to watch that Bruce Party interview, and it's been a while since I've actually watched good content. So bravo.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, I was really disappointed in myself with that episode. So glad you enjoyed it. I was just missing the fucking point. You know, like there's, excuse me, a number of times where Bruce says I would be a terrible politician. And what I was intending to say is that you would be a terrible politician because you're not a politician. And that's what we need, is outsiders. We need real leaders, not politicians. But I just kept saying, yes, you'd be a great politician. And I missed the point completely. I'm going to have Bruce back right away. He's incredibly easy to work with. So I'm going to have him back, make up for that episode. A couple of people noticed that I just kept fucking missing the point. And I completely agree, guys. I missed the point in a number of moments in that episode.
It was a tough job, man. I think he disagreed with you. He disagreed with you every single point you made, which was like 10 times. And I was like, man, poor Jason probably has no self-esteem left after this.
No. It was the way I was phrasing things. And I realized that I kept falling back into like the Canadian bubble of like, how do we fix this and keep it as it is, where he's saying you can't keep it as it is. You have to destroy this thing and start over, which I completely agree with him. I don't know why I was taking that position, because that's not my general position on things. That's not the way I really view things, but it just came out that way. I don't know. Maybe it was the mood I was in that day. Maybe it was where my frame of thought was coming from. But yeah, I botched that episode.
No, you didn't botch it. He does the same thing with me when I have him on. I say something and then he disagrees politely. That's just the Bruce Party treatment.
I love that he does that, you know, because what's difficult with doing a podcast for people watching this is that you have people on and you start a discussion, and for a lot of people, like the natural inclination is to want to agree with the person that you're talking to so that the conversation moves smoothly. And it's very difficult to disagree with somebody openly or challenge their point of view in a polite way that keeps the conversation moving smoothly. And Bruce Party is a master of that. And it's because he's a professor, right? So he knows how to disagree with you or challenge your point of view in a way that doesn't alienate you, right? And he did that for the whole episode, and I fucking love it. I love the guy. I love Bruce. And to be honest with you, I've said this before and I'll say it again. I said it in the episode when I kissed his ass, like to a point of like cringe levels. I think that if Alberta does vote yes on a referendum and we do achieve independence, he is the guy to lead us.
Yeah, if they let him in. I get the feeling they pushed him out.
Yeah, I mean, no, I mean, look, the reality is this, is that a lot of people on both sides or on both teams, the Team Canada or Team Alberta, they're not thinking for the long term. They're thinking for the short term, right? And so, like with the Alberta separation thing, my main beef with it is that they don't have a plan. They don't know what they're going to do when they achieve independence. And Bruce made a really good point in the episode where it's like, you might have a plan, but that plan might not work. Like, you got to just go for it. And then whatever comes out of it, you got to work with. But in order for that to work, you need a Bruce party in a leadership position. Because if it's just a bunch of people who thought that the road ends at independence, that experiment's going to fail dramatically very quickly.
You know, watching that interview that you did, it made me realize why I'm so angry, disappointed. I have a sense of despair with the fracturing of the Donald Trump base. I had a friend. He asked me rhetorically. He goes, what is the Canadian dream? What does it mean to be Canadian? I didn't have a good answer, and he goes, when I was young, to be Canadian meant that anybody could come here, provided they agreed to build. They had to build the country. They had to build something. And he was talking about his father. He'd drive around as a kid, and his father would say, I built that building. I built that parking lot. I helped build the electric grid for that mall. So he was always building something. And I think that's what the Americans are trying desperately to hold on to. And they're pushing back against this socialist, dystopian, upside down, bizarro world that we have in Canada, where it's all about deindustrialization, conservationism, everything that Bruce Party was talking about, socialism. And what was really interesting about the interview you did, I've watched the steady decline of Bruce Party from having hope to having no hope for Canada. And he basically said, like, nothing's going to change in Canada. It takes a long time to change the culture. And if you can get out, get out.
Yeah. I think that perspective, that pride in having built your nation, that's a post-war perspective, right? And I think a lot of that pride came from knowing that, like, I built this, bridge or road or building, and I was paid well for it, and I took care of my family and provided a quality of life that I worked hard to achieve. And I think that pride has disappeared because the people who are building things can't afford a quality of life for their families that gives them something as a reward for their hard work. It's like, now we're in this cycle of, like, get up, go to work, come home, get your paycheck every 2 weeks, poof, all your money's gone, do it again. And so there's no pride in what you're producing anymore, because there's nothing to show for it, right? Like, I was thinking, this is way off the beaten path, but with these 11 scientists, I think it's 12 now, scientists that have disappeared over the last year. What's really fascinating, and this is like, UFO conspiracy stuff, but what's really fascinating is that one of the ladies who disappeared, somebody screenshotted a text thread in a discussion with her, and she said, remember, I told you that the world or the end was coming in 2028. And then they start talking about time travel, and she says, yes, it exists, but you can only go back, not forward. And I was thinking, what if there's this, I don't know, deep state secret cabal that has realized that artificial general intelligence will actually be the end of humanity, and that these scientists, whether it's the 11 that we know of and maybe others that have disappeared that we don't know, have been sent back in time to stop it from happening. And that there's going to be this ripple, this Mandela effect scenario where we wake up one day and AI is just gone. Like, and this is science fiction-y, I know, like, this is way out there shit. But then I was thinking to myself, like, if I could go back in time, what period would I go to? And I was thinking, I would probably go to 1948. Why? I think that's where I would start. Why would, like, so if the technology exists and you can only go back, but you can't go forward, I would go to 1948, because that's the beginning of the boom. It's the beginning of the middle class. 1948 to roughly 1980 are the golden years of the American dream. You know, it's funny because you read a lot from like Hunter Thompson, right? And the running theme throughout all of his work is that he's searching for the American dream and that the American dream is dead. But what he doesn't realize is that he's in the golden age. While he's trying to search for the American dream, he's living it. You know? And that's the golden age, the golden period, like 1948 to like 1980. After Reagan, everything fucking nosedives. You know, the corporations take over. But, you know, in the 1950s, like that was the era of the American dream. That was when, you know, you would drive by a bridge and be like, yeah, I built that bridge. That bridge bought me a station wagon, a cottage on the lake, a family trip every year, a home that I own, and a wife who's happy and stays at home and takes care of the kids. That bridge represented that quality of life that you provided for your family. That was the pride that we felt. And so, like, if I could go back, that's the era I would go back to, because that was the era of real, true prosperity.
Well, I mean, you mentioned time travel. Now I gotta share my thoughts. There's a really good show. It only got 2 seasons. It's called Timeless. It's like a very simple premise. The bad guys get a time machine. The good guys get a time machine. The bad guys have like these like macho, you know, special forces guys. They're getting involved in shootouts. And then the set piece historian is this like super hot chick. And every episode she's wearing a different outfit. You got a comic relief black nerd guy who does the flying. And
Okay.
and the premise of the show is they can go back at any point in history, but they can only go once. Like if they go back twice, they might run into their whatever themselves and cause a causality loop or something. And they go to
Right.
different set pieces, and it's really cool. Like they go to Al Capone and his control of the mayor in Chicago. They go to George Washington. They go to Kennedy and the detonation of the atomic bombs. And you're almost describing that. Now, if you're asking me if I'd pick up a certain piece, I don't know. My question would be, am I immortal? Like if I go back to the Roman Republic, am I going to get killed?
No, I think you go back to a point in time, and then that's just where you are. You know? So like I go back to 1948 as a 43-year-old man, I'm dead by 1980.
Yeah,
Right?
but like you could you go to like 1 million BC and just get a waterfront home and just live out your days, no taxes?
Just that's dude, that is the perfect period for you. Like for you, that's where you would go.
No government.
To a point in time where there are no fucking human beings whatsoever. And you would live out your days.
My luck, yeah.
Just as happy as could be.
1 million acres of forest. I run into like the one indigenous, you know, savage. I'm like, God fucking hell. 2 million BC.
The one other human being.
Covered in shit.
So speaking of the 1940s, the era of the American dream, of the era of prosperity, last live stream, we capped it off by talking about this city of London idea, right? And what was interesting was you said something that really stuck with me. You said, you know, you and Sam Cooper and me being Peyman Askari, and these Promethean action people, we're all talking about the same thing. We're just using different terms to describe it. And I've been thinking about that shit all week leading into this conversation, man, because in a way, I think you're right. But in a way, I think we're all kind of seeing it from a different angle. So I wanted to start the live stream this week, Peyman, by asking you and having you go into this idea that the city of London is, you know, the nucleus of this globalist new world order. So Peyman, where does this story begin? What is this a concept of what is being referred to as the city of London?
The definitive expert on this, in my opinion, at least in Canada, is Matthew Arrett. Like he knows it even before the city of London. He knows all of the players. I don't really know the names. I've been fascinated with this concept of the city of London. Like, what is it? And Let's start with the concept of a charter. So a charter, it's like a verb. It's something that a king can do. A king can turn to people and give them a charter, a mandate, say, give them permission to do something. And around, I guess, the late 1600s, the King of England gave a charter to the East India Company, a commercial charter, said you can run as a corporation and you can go to India. Whatever you get back, you can keep it, you can do whatever you want over there. So the East India Company, based out of this little part of London, goes to India, enslaves the population. If they rise up, causes famines. It just does horrible things, steals all their wealth, all their jewels, gold, natural resources, brings it back. They make a ton of money. So that's sort of the beginning of the banking system in England. I'm not saying in the world. And this whole bigger, larger than life Rothschild brand, it started out from there. That's where they got their money. And roughly at the same time, kind of fortuitously, you had the Industrial Revolution taking off because they created the steam engine. Now, I don't know if it's just happenstance that they started using corporations as their principal weapon to shield themselves legally, to hide their identities. But the money that they siphoned off of India went into all these tiny little corporations rather than one monolith East India Company, one corporation in this steam engine, one corporation in this manufacturing building. And they took over everything in England. Now, I'm playing fast and loose with the dates, but let's say the 1700s. 1776, 2/3 of the people in the 13 colonies own land. They're highly skilled for their time, so they can make manufactured goods, unlike Canada. They are very educated because they were persecuted, relatively educated for the time because they were persecuted.
And just to be clear, so for people watching, by 13 colonies, you're talking about the 13 colonies of what would ultimately become the United States of America, right?
Yes. Sorry.
Okay.
So those 13 colonies, what I'm trying to say is they had the right circumstances for a revolution. I'm not saying they were God's chosen people, but what they represented was more in line with a pro-life policy. And you could think of what would become the City of London was an anti-life policy. It was the ruling elites. They almost usurped the power of the king. Now, I don't know if the kings of Europe, England and France, made some mistakes. They went to war with each other and they went bankrupt and they had to beg for money from the banks, or if the banks financed both sides to make sure that they would come out on top. But from then till World War I, it was a slow and steady decline of the power of the kings. And in World War I, it just ended completely. Going back a little bit, in about the 1800s, these same banking interests, which at this point you could call it the City of London or the London banking interests, they started in a very predatory fashion trying to take over America. So we're talking post-Civil War, 1860s, 70s. They would attack the merchant fleets of the US, either directly through the Royal Navy or indirectly through financial warfare, making sure they don't get insurance. So now they lost their merchant shipping in the US and they were at the mercy of these London banking interests. And they would make demands like you have to sell it to us at cheaper prices. They would go in and they would cause bank runs. And the way back in the day, in the 1860s, 70s, the banks had a gold standard. So 20% of if you have $1 billion in currency, 200 million has to be in physical gold. Well, if the Rothschild banking interest in the City of London owns $150 billion, $1 million worth of that gold, they could just say, we want our gold back. You cause a bank run, corporations, they panic, they want their money, bank run, everybody goes bankrupt, they come in and they buy up the money. Now, that's City of London. What's evolved after World War II, you could think of Wall Street as a satellite, a sister, or the son that usurped the father. That's the City of London in the US. It's everything that's satanic, anti-life, this hyper-financialization of the economy, this paying people to sell bad mortgages as opposed to paying farmers or bricklayers. It does get conspiratorial. I'm sure they assassinate people. They control the CIA. They control all the governments and the elections, and they use our money through usury against us. But at the end of the day, I think it's just a metaphor for evil.
Wow. Okay. So who are the key figures in this group? Key names.
I don't know. I mean, I can give you some names, but like Rothschild is one, Bronfman, I think, is another. The Rockefellers, J.P. Morgan. But the problem with the WHO, like when you start going down that rabbit hole of the WHO, it just becomes like name dropping. Whitney Webb does this a lot, and I kind of just go into this catatonic state, and I'm like, my mind can't absorb that many names.
Yeah, and so I've read about this from time to time. I think we all know what it is now, right? Like we know that there's some sort of central control mechanism behind all of this. I think that controls that control source, that source revealed itself during COVID. Like we for the first time got to see like the actual machinery at work. We got to see the gears move. But we often like, for example, in Canada, we referred to that as Trudeau. But what we didn't understand, and I say we by like the general public, the general population, is that it's not Trudeau, it's the Desmarais family and Power Corporation. It's the Laurentian elites. It's not Trudeau. He's a middle manager. And say, for example, in the United States, we always refer to it as Obama or Biden or Trump, but these are just middle managers. Or in Britain, Keir Starmer, middle manager. That there is a layer above that are actually the ones in control. And it feels like that group, that layer, that upper layer is insulated by other outer layer figures like George Soros or Mark Carney. That even though there is this upper layer that George Soros, Mark Carney, Bill Gates are all part of, even they're kind of the outside wall of the heart of this thing. And that none of us really know who's at the heart of this thing. Like when you talk about global corporations, there are really two that own everything, Vanguard and State Street. And I'm forgetting one. I know there's another
BlackRock?
BlackRock, right? So we know that Larry Fink runs BlackRock, but we don't know who the money behind BlackRock is. We don't know who owns Vanguard. That's a complete mystery. Nobody knows. And, talking about this from a religious context, right? People often refer to Satan as like this singular entity. But I think that this thing that we refer to as like Satan or the devil is what is at the heart of these things. That is what is at the heart of this group. But we don't know who's there. I mean, I think we have an idea with names like Rockefeller, Rothschild, Morgan, DuPont, Desmarais in Canada. But it's like a very, very close-knit, tight-knit, secretive aristocracy. And so, Peyman, I want to get into what's currently happening in the world, because there is this, I don't know, I don't want to call it conspiracy, but this hypothesis that what we're seeing play out in front of us with Trump and China and Trump and Iran is actually a struggle on the side of the United States against this City of London group. Can you break down what the theory at least is?
Sure. I mean, I can try. If for anybody watching, I'm not some like superior moral authority. I'm just a guy who's is interested and fascinated with this stuff. So before tackling your question of what's going on with America and China, you're basically asking who's in charge. There's something about human nature. We relate with stories where there's one identifiable bad guy, right? It's just easier. And I want to go back to the fall of the Roman Republic. We know who the characters were. I mean, you had Caesar, you had Pompey, you had Mark Antony, Brutus. Before him, you had Sulla. Like these are the big players. There's a far less sexy way of explaining why the Republic fell. The empire just grew. The Republic grew. The wars got further and further away. These yeoman farmers, they had to, instead of leaving for campaign season, a couple of months of war, they're leaving for several years. You can't leave a farm unattended for several years. They come back, dilapidated state, and you have to sell that farm. Well, who do you sell the farm to? You sell it to the senators that line their pockets during that war.
Right.
And that's how the republic kind of fell. So what I'm trying to say is, I know it's interesting to focus on the who. I'm more interested in on the how. Now, this China and America thing, I think where the split is coming and the base is fracturing, people really, they sense that America, this is like another 1776 moment. This is the last chance to stop this financialization, to stop the socialism that Bruce Party was talking about on your interview. I think he nailed it perfectly. He said, what is socialism? It's government managing society. That's socialism. And the Americans are trying to push back, and that's what Trump was supposed to represent. And China sort of represents the opposite of that. It's peak socialism. I mean, the government manages everything. They maybe not the low level stuff. They give the people the ability to run their own business just so there's no revolution. But that's what China represents. Now, what is causing the split is people are worried that the neocons are getting in the middle of this. There's a sense that the neocons are saying, all right, we've gotten our guy in. We've let the populists believe that they're in control of Trump. We don't need him anymore. Let's go business as usual. So the people are a little bit pissed off. No, they don't want China, but they want a return to an industrial base, to life, land, liberty.
Okay. And so in this scenario, are the neoconservatives acting as a branch of this City of London group, or are they acting independently?
Okay. These are really good questions, but remember I said that the City of London, it's like a metaphor. So they are working, the neocons, they receive funds, the donations. Where do those donations come from? Well, they come from lobbies, principally. Where does the money for those lobbies come from? It's got to come from the billionaire class, from the corporations, the arms dealers. Those people basically are the City of London. It's a very parasitic system that's been set up. When they say America is no longer sovereign, some people say since the 90s, since George H.W. Bush, it stopped being sovereign. What they mean is that the lobbyists have undue influence. So is it the City of London? Sure. I mean, I would say it's most likely Wall Street. All of these Zionists that support Israel, that money is not coming from Israel. Israel is a dumpy little country. It would not survive without America. That money might be laundered through Israel. They might use Israel as their cheerleader, as their symbol. But that money is coming from U.S. taxpayers, it's not even the U.S. taxpayers. It's the prime reserve currency that's propped up by the military of the United States. They're extorting money from the rest of the world through inflation, and that money gets circulated back in this thing you call DC. It's my long way of saying yes, the City of London.
So the city of London is essentially a metaphor for the global banking elites, for the banking cartel.
Yes. If you want to go into more detail about this, I recommend Simon Dixon. The guy knows everything about this. I just like to say that the City of London, it is a physical city. Like there's a city within London that's called the City of London, and that's where the banks are. But it's it's what they represent. It's like the Bank of International Settlements or the Vatican. It's what they represent, which is the interests of formerly the British Empire, which is, we have a mandate from God to go around the world and blast the lesser people, exploit their resources, and bring them back for king and country kind of thing. It's the same thing in the US, except there's no king. It's for God and country.
So what is motivating them? Is it just power?
That's a good question. And earlier we were talking about building things, and you said that they've taken away our ability to build things, so we don't have a purpose. Let's look at you. You've built something. It's not something that you can touch, but it's this podcast. You've worked very hard. You built it. You're very proud. You might make a modest income, support your family. I mean, at no point did it ever occur to you maybe I should leave this where I'm building something that makes me feel good, and I should go join the HOA where I can enforce